This is the Art of Network Engineering podcast. In this podcast, we'll explore tools, technologies, and talented people. We aim to bring you information to expand your skill sets and toolbox and share the stories of fellow network engineers.
Welcome to the Art of Network Engineering podcast, your favorite podcast that you probably found somewhere on the internet, because guess what? That's what we do. We soak ourselves in the internet all day, every day. I'm one of those people. My name is Aaron Engineered. You can find me pretty much on every social media platform, as well as my website, aaronengineered.com. With me, I have AJ.
Hey guys, how's it going?
AJ, you can find him. He is at No Blinky Blinky. In case you're living under a rock, you can find him just about everywhere too, at No Blinky Blinky. And then noblinkyblinky.com. WordPress, got the blog going, all of that. We got Dan, and Dan's a special character because today I'm going to unveil Dan's actual handle, which is voted by you, the people, and it seems the winner is Dan. Go ahead and say it because I'm having a rough. I'm doing it justice.
It's at Howdy Packet.
That's right. So yes,
I think it's fitting.
HOWDY for those of you who don't know how to spell howdy, which would be everybody on my side of the country that can't spell howdy or have never heard that word before. It is a Southern greeting for hello.
It's really Texan, though, isn't it?
It could.
I have not heard howdy outside of Texas.
That's true. That's true. And then also, you just heard him, but I'm going to get to him in a second. But right quick before I get to our guest, last and certainly not least, Mr. Rebrand himself, whose name we did not put to a vote. However, he's putting out different versions of what he would like his logo to look like. So maybe he'll grace us with those and maybe put that to a vote, Andy. That's probably a good idea. I just thought of that on the spot. So he had a couple of different iterations of what his logo should look like, and I thought he had some pretty cool ones. But I'll let you tell the world what your handle is.
Hello, everybody. I go by Permit IP Andy. And there is currently a Fiverr artist working on 3 versions of a logo for me.
So, and I'm sure that your communication between you and that person is going extremely well at this point. I'm just guessing.
It is.
I'm just guessing.
It is, and you guys helped me with that. I kind of got my ducks in order before I reached out.
You got to tell them what you want. You don't ask. You tell them.
Yeah, you know.
And before, again, I know you heard the guest poke in, and if you didn't recognize his voice, you are also living under a rock, and I don't know how you found this podcast, but with us we have the Thunder from Down Under, not from Australia, but from where are you at? Where are you from? You from Nolens or just in Louisiana in general?
Baton Rouge, which is about 45 minutes away from New Orleans.
Okay.
It's kind of not quite sister cities, but close enough.
Pretty close. So that for those of you who can't recognize it, that is Knox Hutchinson. He is a CBT Nuggets trainer. He's all over the internet. Currently doing a CCIE journey on YouTube, which is really cool because he's kind of sharing tips and tricks even before he got started. So it's been like a front to back book almost that we're all just like watching along with, kind of like a little bit how Tony E did, which was really cool. So we're following along with that. And in our Discord server, I mentioned this earlier, and I want to just make sure that I get it out of the way now. But our buddy in the #winning channel, NetSecWheezy, we know who you are. You're the guy that was too tall to get to the Navy, which I made fun of a couple of days ago. I don't know how that's possible, but somehow today, this is not going to make any sense to anybody listening to this, but the guy went and got a root canal, and if that wasn't bad enough, he decided after that he was going to go take a certification test. That certification was for Splunk. So he shows up to the test center, half his face is numb, he's probably spitting blood like Mike Tyson, and he passed.
Woo! That is so epic.
What do you even say to that? Like
that
You
is
talk
that
about
is
like your
legendary.
pre-exam nerves are just completely gone at that point. So you must be just so ready to take an exam and you don't even care.
Yeah, he's wiped. He's wiped. So anyway, Knox, introduce yourself, sir. Tell us who you are, where you came from. Give us the skinny.
What's up, y'all? Knox Hutchinson, trainer at CBT Nuggets. Longtime fan of CBT Nuggets before I was affiliated or worked for them. The journey to get to where I am now was a tumultuous one. A little bit of bumps on the road. Started my journey late, and it's been pretty well documented. But if we want to get into it, like, we can do that, or we can, punt to YouTube or something else.
Yeah, we're gonna do both actually, because I think you've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. One thing I wanted to get off of my chest before we got too deep in your story was that you used to do a little YouTube segment where you were eating crawfish with other people.
Uh-huh.
First of
crawfish and tech.
Yeah, okay. What the heck happened to that? Because I love crawfish, dude.
Yeah, so coronavirus happened was the first thing. So crawfish season is February till about May. May-ish is when they get too big. So then when they're that big, their shells get really hard. It's kind of hard to crack them open. They also, they don't absorb the seasoning as much, so it kind of just dies off until February-ish of the next year. So, coronavirus happened. Everybody's world got tossed upside down at that point. It was hard to... I really wanted that segment to be, very personal and intimate. We had one remote interview with a guy named Key Tran. He's actually the reason I got into tech. And I thought that was one of the best interviews I've ever heard. He didn't know any of those questions I was going to ask him ahead of time. And that dude just crushed the answers. I sat there going man, I really learned something in this segment just talking to you, dude. He's a baller.
And I hope you take this with as much stride as possible, but coming from someone like you saying that about somebody else is a little intimidating. So you seem to, and that leads me to my next question, which isn't a question. Please tell us and the world one thing that you are absolutely awful at. We have to know.
So, you could steal from the movie Spelunking, not crying at the end of My Girl.
Okay.
No, there's a whole lot of things that I'm terrible at. And for the most part, I'm a master of nothing.
Disagree.
Okay, so I started in tech. I started studying tech and networking in October of 2015. So it has been 5 years to the month when I started in tech. 5 years ago, I didn't know what an IP address was.
What?
So, that's what I'm saying. I started my journey really, really late. And for me to, being a trainer very frequently feels like you get a bad case of imposter syndrome.
I would imagine.
And that's just kind of part of it, because you're like, especially with something new like DNA Center that we just rolled out, right? That's a brand new technology. Nobody in the world knows it. I get a brown box on my front door, and it's like, go get them, Tiger. And 2 months later, I'm like, I'm the expert of SD Access. When am I really the expert of SD Access? Maybe.
But who's going to tell you otherwise, right?
I'll tell you what. If you watch my course, you're going to learn a lot about SD Access. You'll be able to deploy it, and that's what I think matters. I often tell trainers that a lot, that the job of being a trainer is that when it comes to new technologies, your job, your purpose in this world is to suffer through learning these things where there's no resources out there, there's no textbook. To pull that SD Access course together, I went to Reddit, forum posts, video training, white papers, Cisco Live blogs, Cisco Live training. There was not one place that shows you how to implement SD Access. You have to pull from 9,000 different places. And then versions of DNA Center change from one version to the next. So I'd try something. It didn't work because that was in an old version. So I'd have to factory default the entire lab and start over again. So my whole point of making this course was so that nobody else would have to. And that's what I try and tell other trainers. It's it doesn't actually matter if you're God's gift to networking or not. It matters if the person who watches your stuff becomes God's gift to networking. That's what the job of the trainer is.
That's very...
maybe that's me being vulnerable and exposing too much.
No, dude. No, not at all. I think people me personally, I like to hear that because there's a, you are human. I guess is the moral of the story, which we did not think you were, honestly. Just because you just kind of know stuff. So okay. So you didn't know what an IP address was in September of 2015.
Right.
Was it because were you always in the like data world before that? Because your original CBT Nuggets content obviously was geared towards like DevOps and things like that, right?
No, so it was specifically business intelligence and data analytics.
Oh.
So my segue into tech. So I started out, graduated in 2008 with an econ degree. And the short answer to what an econ degree is you're really good at taking data and predicting what it's going to do. So that was like, okay, well, this is what my skill set is. What jobs could I do that aren't an economist? Because economists have to be PhDs, and ain't nobody got time for that.
Oh.
So
okay.
So I'm like, so I found a job working. So at first, it was the middle of the recession. So I got a job selling insurance for 5 years. That was, to pay the bills, which I didn't even do that. I just barely survived. And then eventually found a job basically. So if there's lawyers and then there's paralegals, there's economists, and then there's para-economists. And I was a para-economist, so to speak.
That makes sense.
For the state's Department of Labor. So that's how I got into technology in general. I was analyzing labor statistics, trying to predict like, okay, this segment, there's like a huge demand for this job in this county. We call them parishes, but they're counties everywhere else. So how do we create some sort of like training program or implement some sort of like law that influences the labor market to go into this job? So that was what I was doing, analyzing statistics and stuff. But what I found out pretty quickly, analyzing all of this data about like jobs and pay, and more importantly, what are the requirements to get these jobs, I looked at SQL developer, systems engineer, network engineer. It was all like no college, like one certification, and then you're looking at, in our state, $60,000 to $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at my pay, and I'm looking at my credentials, and I'm going, I could do that.
Yeah.
So I took like a little online course to learn SQL. So actually, that's not true. I interviewed for like 3 jobs, and I told them, like, if you hire me, I will be the best thing you've ever hired. I promise. I will work harder than anyone you've ever seen. And they were all like, man, this was the best interview we've ever sat in. You are so good. We can't hire you because you don't know SQL.
Okay, so that's good to point out because you actually got in the door in front of someone without SQL. How did you pull that off? So, because we always hear this all the time, right? Guys are like, oh, I don't have the experience.
Yeah. No, I mean, so when I apply to jobs like I'm homeless. Even if I'm not like hurting, even if I'm not struggling, like if I decide I'm going into the labor market, anything that's even a little close is going to get my application.
Okay.
And it's a brute force attack of HR.
Okay. Yeah, it is.
And that's just how I do things. I just blitz the job market as hard as I can, and I make sure that every HR department in the city knows my name. And then, like, you know what? If you don't quite meet the job, maybe you got to fluff it up a little bit. Maybe you got to use the thesaurus.
Can you give us an example?
Give us some big words. I mean, like you could say proficient in SQL when you're not proficient in SQL. Basic SQL.
They're like, sir, you spelled SQL wrong.
That's right. I know. And it's so I mean, like I did get a SQL job. I knew how to do querying in SQL, but I had never used Microsoft SQL Server before.
Wow.
And that wasn't necessarily a job requirement. They didn't ask me about it in my interview. I knew how to write a select, to join, and insert, a delete, and update. But when it came to doing the job, I couldn't do the job. I needed to learn SQL Server. But I got my foot in the door and I got the job. And within 8 months of that job, I was becoming the senior architect. So, that's how I kind of just.
You made it sound so
it
easy.
Was one of,
Yeah, right.
But so that's the thing, is like, this is where everything changed. As I landed that job, I started learning SQL.
Yeah.
I realized that I wasn't good enough at SQL, and then I got that fateful email that was, we just got 20 subscriptions to CBT Nuggets, and we've got 20 subscriptions to, I can't say their name, competitor. There's no way I can say
the other
ABC,
the other video company,
someone who would compete directly with CBT Nuggets.
Sure.
And you probably know who they are.
McDonald's.
So I went with competitor ABC.
Yep.
And after 1 week, I'm like, I can't find what I want. I'm not learning SQL. Like, where do I even start? Like, it's disorganized. Just throw it away. So I pinged my friends. I pinged the other people who were in the environment, and I said, if you were trying to do this, what would you do? And they said, you need to go for IT certifications. And CBT Nuggets is primarily like a clear spot for certification training.
Yeah.
So this was like 2015, mid 2015 at that point. So that's when I got CBT Nuggets. I got really deep into SQL. And then it all really happened. The big thing that happened there was that I was on the database team. I was architecting SQL and XML solutions. And we would have to frequently work with the systems engineers and the network engineers. And one team was speaking Greek, one was speaking Japanese, and one team was speaking Zulu. It was, the emails might have been written in those native languages too, with the same, the different alphabets and everything. So it was just not working. And the biggest point that I saw was that networking were like, the network engineers in particular were not nice people. They were like,
I'm looking at Andy. I'm looking directly at Andy. Grumpy old man.
If you weren't in IT and you had a stereotype of an IT employee, that was them.
Basement
that was
dweller.
the disgruntled, just that air of superiority.
Yeah.
My title ends with engineer. Your title ends with specialist. Therefore, I am superior to you. That type of thing. So I'm like, F you guys, I'm going to go learn networking. So,
Dude, this is crazy.
Gotta be like him, right?
Yeah.
So October. So legitimately, I reached out to Key, that guy in that video, and I said, what would you do, dude? And he said, build a home lab. So he walked me through buying a Dell R710. He walked me through installing ESXi on it. He walked me through spinning up my first Windows Server VM. And what I learned through going all of that is that without a network, none of this stuff works. So it's time to learn networking. And that's when I decided I'm committing to going for my Network Plus. And I started with Keith Barker's Network Plus and Keith Barker's Network Plus textbook. And that was it. It was just like, once that started, I took the exam. I started in October. I took the exam in January. And I haven't stopped studying and going for certification since. That's really how it happened.
If you had stopped, I would call BS on you because of the amount of stuff that you have. I'd be like, there's no way you stopped. Because I think at this point, you got to tell us, like, what is your secret sauce here? Because you're snowballing. And when I say snowball, I mean, like, it's almost like a ADHD. And I can say that because I have it, so it's okay. It's like,
yeah, no, you're good.
Let's do that now. Whoa, what was that? Let's do that now. But for some reason, most people like myself and everybody else, like here, like, Dan and AJ and Andy, we're like, okay, guess we got to do this now. And then we struggle through it. And then, but it seems like, and this is where I want, to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit. It seems like you're just like, I think I'm going to go get my CCNP Encore today. Because to be fair, you did do that. And I was like, this guy cannot be for real. This is what I'm saying, like, out loud to myself. My wife's like, what are you talking about? Like, we're like eating dinner. I'm like, this guy can't be for real. He just
look, I passed Encore with an 825, the minimum score.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But if you listen to the other episodes, which I know you have, like, AJ failed that one, not the exact one, but he failed it like 10 times. I failed CCNP 3 or 4 times. Andy as well. And
I failed route.
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
Oh,
That's the only one I failed.
I feel better now.
I feel better now too. See, this is why I'm asking. But
yeah,
you were, and this is just kind of my I don't know, like my distance view, like my spectator view of what's going on was like you were studying for the CCIE. The CCNP is like, it's there, but that wasn't your goal, right? And I think you've even said that out loud. It's like, that was never my goal. My goal was to get a CCIE. Just so happens CCNP is on the way. So of course you were learning all that stuff. And then one day you were like, I know all this stuff. Let me just go take it. And lo and behold, there it was, right?
Yeah, kinda. So, I mean, there were a lot of other things that played into that. I mean, 5 years of studying for exams and working 2 jobs.
Oh.
After 2015, the 2016 job, I took a job at an MSP and I stayed there for just over 2.5 years.
Okay.
Small company. The MSP had like 8 employees, but like 200 clients. And all of those clients were itty bitty clients. I think the biggest client was like 150 employees, but the average client was probably like 10. So very diverse budgets, mean very diverse solutions. which means very diverse technology sets. And with a small staff, you have to be good at everything and you have to be flexible. So these dudes, when they interviewed me, like at that point, I went back to that employer where I was trying to learn networking. And I told them, like, look, I got my Network Plus. I decided I'm going to work on my CCNA. You should make me a position in networking, and I can bridge the gap between us. And they were like, nope, we're networkers. So I was like, all right, peace. and I went to this MSP, and when I interviewed with that MSP, like, the interview turned into, like, a 3-hour conversation where we just, like, had fun. And I, like, connected to my VPN at home on my cell phone, and pulled up, there was a vSphere app for your phone at the time. So over VPN, I connected to my vSphere app. And they're like, wait a minute. Like, you've never done this before, though. You've never actually done this in any production environment. I'm like, yeah, I just got it at home. I'm just trying to, like, get my way in. And they're like, okay, you're hired. So
Wow. Home lab strikes again, folks.
Oh,
like,
wow.
that is it. So I was, like, within my first 2 weeks there, I took ICND1. And my very first day on the job, they like took a stack of Cisco switches and a stack of Juniper switches, and they said, the client has Cisco switches. They're moving to Juniper switches. Go. And that was my first project. So I had to, like, I was in the middle of learning Cisco. I'd never learned a thing about Juniper at the time. So now it was like, okay, I'm about to take ICND1. I've got to continue ICND1 studies, but also learn the Juniper variant of the commands in order to do my job. So it was kind of like my job, my 40-hour-a-week job there at the MSP was like legitimately learn your butt off for 2 years. So, you know, with being in an environment where you're like, you have to be fueled with constant technology, it actually makes not going for certifications easier, but there were a lot of incentivizations to be like, well, if I could just fill in this one more gap, then I'm good enough to take the exam.
Okay. Yeah, basically so that if you're in that position again, you know, instead of just saying, yeah, I worked with Junos, you're like, I have a JNCIA or JNCIS or whatever. That way you don't have to log in to your VPN when you're in an interview. Although, we've talked about this before, having the home lab, and I'm just going to make fun of Andy because we always talk about physical versus virtual labs. +1 for the physical lab, though, on that one, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, software developers have to have a personal GitHub. Like when you go into a developer job interview, one of the things that will stand out to me as a hiring manager is if you're so enthusiastic about this tech that you do it on your own free time and post it up for the world to see.
For fun, yeah.
The home lab is that for infrastructure. Physical or virtual.
I feel like somebody should just take that as a sentence, right? So we have these books. I actually have one right behind me. It's like 50 interview questions that someone could ask you. You know what I mean? All these canned answers. But what I like about the book is it tells you what they're really trying to glean from you when they're asking those questions, right? And I feel like the way you just explained why you have the lab would be almost like a complete perfect answer if somebody could memorize that. Like, look, I don't have all the skills on paper necessarily, but this is what I do, and this is why I have the lab. And then someone could easily just be like, sure. And quite honestly, if someone, an employer, isn't respecting the lab like they should, like, put some respect on the lab, folks. Like, if they're not respecting the lab, you probably don't want to work there, right? Is that fair?
That's why I asked when I was a hiring manager. That's why I asked to review every resume. I had a feeling that like HR was going to miss something like that. I am looking for inspiration and motivation before I look for experience.
Yeah.
Well, that's the honest truth.
Yeah, and why wouldn't you though? Because like you've lived that situation. It definitely hits home for you because you said you were like apply for places like you're homeless, which I'm stealing that too. Like dude, I'm telling dudes this all the time. I'm like, why would you apply for something that you were qualified for? How boring is that going to be? Right? Like, what do you do like on day one when they're like, I'm looking for a guy who got his CCNA yesterday and all we need him to do is log in and change the password on a bunch of VTY lines. Like, that's your only job. Oh, hey, heck yeah, baby, that sounds easy. What are you paying? It's $17 an hour. I don't care. It's easy. Yeah. You don't want to be there, right? That's what AJ does.
No. Thanks.
Well, it depends on how many kids you have and how much sleep you get. But
Okay. So do you have kids?
So
sometimes people are like, just give me something where I can drink like 9 million cups of coffee and just type the same commands all day long, and then I can just go home.
That's true. That's true.
And just
so that's one of
survive
my
until
questions.
tomorrow.
Do you have kids though?
I have one kid, and I
kid.
have 2 on the way.
Oh,
Two on the way.
twinsies!
Whoa.
Yeah.
Dang.
So that's why I've been hinting at it on YouTube. That's the big secret, is that like if the exams don't open this year, it's gonna be a while till I
Oh,
can take
buddy.
it, because they're due in February.
Oh,
So,
congratulations!
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah,
in
congrats.
January she's on bed rest. I ain't traveling to Texas in January.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah,
Is
that's
it
awesome.
boys or girls, or do you not want to
Girls.
say yet?
Yeah,
girls.
it's girls,
Okay.
yeah.
And what's your oldest then?
He's a boy.
Okay, cool. That's cool. We got a nice little mixture there. Way to go,
Yeah,
man.
we got a happy family, man. We're well
Yeah.
rounded.
And so,
awesome, man.
it's how long have you and your wife been married?
We've been together for 13 years. We've been married for 7.
Wow.
Wow.
Y'all, you guys are like Dan. So Dan hasn't ever quit his job. He's had the same job since he was like 19.
No, 22. If we're gonna get technical here.
Yeah, no, he found out about the job via the Pony Express, and then he was down
Wait,
at the
but
local.
where are you at, Dan? You're in Tennessee?
I'm in Tennessee, just
Where
about
in
an
Tennessee?
hour south of Nashville. It's called Columbia, Tennessee.
I know exactly where Columbia is. I lived in Murfreesboro, Tullahoma, and
Oh.
Johnson City.
Heck,
So-
dude, you're close.
And my entire family's from Union City on the west side. But yeah.
Okay.
you
yeah,
guys
okay.
could have exchanged howdies and not even know it.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, I've got my wife has family in Rockville, right outside of Murfreesboro. There.
Yeah. We could probably take this offline, but yeah, we've probably got a lot to catch up on.
Yeah.
And now I'm feeling like the weirdo because I'm,
Yeah.
whatever.
You
First
weirdo
time
in
for everything.
Southern-
California.
The southern states are a small world, man. Everybody's got family
Heck yeah.
somewhere.
That's true. And you guys are just so nice. You end up meeting everybody. Like, we're just not like that.
Yeah, sometimes we're nice, sometimes we're really awful.
Talk to Andy. He's got like 2 friends because like those East Coast guys, man, like they can't even watch their own sports team without throwing rocks at them when they're winning.
We throw batteries at Santa Claus.
Philadelphia, y'all. I've been waiting for you to pipe up, Andy. You've been looking awful pensive over there, man. I could see the wheels turning, the smoker coming out of your ears, the whole 9 yards. Nope.
Just enjoying the conversation,
Just enjoy
man.
the
Taking some notes.
conversation.
Well, let me say this to bring it back on track for a second. Then.
Sure.
So I mean, y'all mentioned something about how like you get told, okay, I guess we got to do this now. Like that was me when I was with an MSP. Like when I started there, like networking was my jam. Like I was the network guy. Even if I wasn't when I started out, like I was going to be that guy within a few months because I was obsessive about networking. So when I failed route, that really crushed me and I got really bitter about it. Because I was like, man, freaking frame relays on there and dialer interfaces, like all these old technologies that nobody uses. But there was a question on there about like totally like doing something beast mode about OSPF and EIGRP and redistribution and engineering the heck out of the route. And I crushed that. That should have been the entire exam right there. Why didn't I pass? Like that sat with me for months. And I always felt like I had unfinished business with CCNP, but my employer at the time saw it as an opportunity to wedge me away from networking, and they incentivized me monetarily to go into systems, and they told me I had to get my MCSE. So that was like, okay, well, I guess it's one of those things that I'll have to do. And to your other earlier point, that was the one time I did take a pause because I got burnt out. I actually did the Active Directory test first. And then I did the Hyper-V test second. And during the Hyper-V test, I just got fried because nobody was implementing Hyper-V. And it's like, WTF. Why am I like killing myself over an exam in tech that I will absolutely never use?
Yeah.
So I took like a 2-month pause there, but I ended up getting my MCSE. So
that was your consolation prize. So you fail route, and your consolation prize is getting an MCSE.
And that was, I'm going to say this. I hope y'all get downloads because of this statement, but I'll say it because I believe it. The MCSE might have been harder to get than the CCIE.
Shots fired.
It took me 15 months from the moment that I started my MCSE journey to finish it. Now it's different. The exam itself obviously is not going to be as hard because it's 4 separate exams. They're, multiple choice sitting in front of a computer. There's no specialized lab. Is the MCSE the gold standard of expert exams that CCIE is? Obviously not, or else they wouldn't be retiring it in January.
True.
But the mountain to climb, I feel like the mountain of the MCSE was larger than the CCIE.
Wow.
That was just 15 savage, grueling months. And I'm gonna paraphrase something Jeremy Chara once said when they asked him, like, why Cisco over Microsoft? Jeremy Chara in an interview said, because Cisco works. Shrug.
Wow.
That was basically it. He's like, you do stuff with Windows Server, you do stuff with Microsoft, and it's like, I don't know what, if I do it over here, is it going to break over there or what? But like when you type the command in Cisco, you press enter, it does what it's supposed to do.
That's
and if
true.
it doesn't, it's because you screwed it up.
That's
Like,
true. I'll
so-
give him that for sure. And just so everybody knows, Chara is a long time Windows admin dude, right? Like he's an OG Windows admin dude.
I mean,
Right,
he's an
Windows-
OG everything.
Windows
but like,
Server
he's best, he's best known for I think Cisco networking.
Yeah.
And Garth would be our Windows guy, if anyone. But like,
Okay.
you work in IT, you have to know it all at some point. Like Char actually owns his own business. He's actually, I don't really know what it is that they do, but they do some cool stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's
Supporting
for, like,
school
school
systems.
Yeah.
In Arizona and Texas, and that's what he
VIA?
primarily
Is that
does.
it?
VIA.
Yeah, VIA.
So that's his thing. But he said that in an interview like a few years ago, and I remember I was going through my MCSE at the time when I saw it, and I'm like, that's what made me groan and go, I wish I were still going for my CCNP. I felt like I had unfinished business.
So obviously you went out and got it the next day, right?
So, well, I mean, this was years ago.
You waited for Apocalypse. So wait, did you take Switch and T-Shoot then? And Route was the only one you failed? Oh, okay.
Route was the only one I took, and Route was the only one I failed.
Okay. That makes me feel a little better.
How long did you study for Route?
3 months, January to March. is
And
what
you passed Encore as well?
I passed Encore in June.
Yeah, that was recent.
How long did you study for Encore?
28 days.
See, you see what I'm saying?
This is why.
But
this
okay,
is why I have a hard time liking people
Right?
like you, because
Do you see what I'm saying?
well, because here's what happens for me, Knox, right? And you're about to have 2 more kids. So I got a very busy job during the day, which, I'm not studying during my work day because I can't. I'm too busy. And then, the wife and kids beat me up until about, 8:30 p.m.
Yep.
So when I'm exhausted at the end of the day, I got to jump into the books and try to study. So for a superhero like you who can bang it out in 28 days,
What's your secret?
I'm lucky if I...
Look,
Yeah,
so-
I mean, how are you doing this? You make me an imposter, man.
So,
Yeah, there's no syndrome here. Andy's a straight up imposter.
the first thing is let me say that I was in your position for a long time. For 2 years, I worked 2 full-time jobs. I had 2 salary positions, 2 401ks, 2 health plans, like literally 2 40-hour-a-week jobs with a newborn. So...
And were you getting certs at that time or not? You pumped the
I
brakes?
was a trainer at CBT Nuggets, and I was the director of IS at the LSU Foundation.
Take that, Andy.
So that was pretty tough. I did go for a couple certifications during that time, most notably the DevNet Associate in Auto, DevNet Professional, and JNCIA DevOps.
But dude, you didn't just go to get the certs. You turned around and started teaching us how to do it, and we still can't figure it out.
So, I mean, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, though. Like, you got to understand that when it comes to training, there's
Yeah.
2 types of trainers. There's trainers who are in their comfort zone, and they're going to train the thing that they're good at,
Okay.
and nothing else. And there's nothing wrong with that because, like, there's a reason why they're that good at it, and there's a reason why that's what they're training. And then there's me, who's, like, my entire existence for the last 5 years has been uncomfortable. Like, I have to learn this new technology. I have to learn it by this date for this client to get this certification. And that is now my norm. So when I roll into CBT Nuggets and they announce DNA Center is this new product, or here's the SD-WAN exam, and here's DevNet Associate, DevCore, in Auto, all of this brand new technology. And I mean, not to mention Azure Developer and the Power BI exam. There's no other training out there on that, or at least not at the time. So I'm the guy who's going, hey, we could create this training that nobody else has, but you have to have faith in me that I'm going to learn the heck out of it and lab it and practice it. And you're going to have to bear with me. So there's going to be like a whole month of time where I upload nothing to CBT Nuggets because I'm just like practicing like freaking crazy.
Trying to figure it out yourself, basically.
So the real truth behind this is, for some trainers, like, their job is to talk about what they've been doing for 30 years because they're masters at it. Whereas other trainers' job, the job is literally to study. And that's why for Encore, I'm sitting here like I'm doing studying for Encore because I'm recording the automation portion of it. And simultaneously, I'm peer reviewing Keith and Jeremy and Jeff's content. So I'm sitting there watching their nuggets anyways. I learn what SD-WAN and SD-Access is. So with a little bit of effort and a little bit of intellectual curiosity, I get hands-on information with that. And that way it's like, okay, well, in 28 days, I'll read the textbook, do a little bit of labbing, take a couple practice exams, and I'll be ready. Because I've really been working on this for like 6 months now. So,
No,
but
that
I didn't
helps.
I didn't dedicate myself to taking Encore until I had to. And the honest truth about that, here's the real thing, like the CCIE journey, that's all filling a void because I lost my job at LSU in April. When COVID hit, this is kind of a funny story. My first day on the job was my birthday, October 22nd, 2018. And
happy
I
birthday.
sat down. Thank you. I sat down and everybody, some people, like a handful of people were using Skype for Business. Everybody else was using email, and they were requesting reports to be run by the IT team. So they would create this big SQL query, dump it out to an Excel file, and all our data was being exchanged via email or whatever. And I'm like, hold the brakes. Let's implement Microsoft Teams right now. It's super secure sharing, a way that we can exchange data, collaborate, and then let's implement Power BI so that we can even automate some of these data report requests. And the day that I was let go, because of coronavirus, it was over a Microsoft Teams call. So I was like killed by my own solution. Let me say this up front. Like, that was one of the best jobs I've ever had. I have no qualms with why I was let go or anything like that. It was coronavirus. It was nobody's fault. This is what happened across the economy. This wasn't a unique thing. And thank God I had that other full-time job, because I literally picked up the phone, called CBT Nuggets, and like, can y'all handle this much production? Because it's coming. So
Yeah, so you had two jobs. So that's interesting, because obviously, like, there's some things that you just don't tell people. Oh, I get it, but you are very transparent, right? Because you're showing us what you're doing basically on a day-to-day basis. But it's nice. I say it's nice to know. It's comforting to know that someone like yourself, is not immune to the same pressures that we are out here, right? Like, I don't think any of us for a second thought that, we would have lasted this long into this, right? If this was going to last this long, because I was thinking like, gosh, where are all the customers going to go? AJ's in the same boat. And also Andy, I mean, his job is money and nobody has any anymore. And then Dan, I don't even know what he does. One day he's like, one day he's plowing the field, and the other day he's, doing whatever. But I know
It's insurance, man.
it's insurance, right? So yeah, no, it's good. I'm having a hard time phrasing that, but it's comforting to know that you are just like the rest of us in some of these regards, where it's like, hey, dude, you did lose your job, but kind of what Andy was saying earlier, it's like, hey, I got all this going on, like, how do I do that? And I think what it sounds like is your answer pretty much all the time is like, I got so many irons in the fire that there's no way I could get burned because there's not enough fire to burn me, right?
Well,
there's things are occupied. Like, I'm ready to go.
Okay, but so there's also the flip side of that. Like, you can do it too much, and it comes at a significant consequence. And that's mental health or even physical health. Working 2 40-hour-a-week jobs, looking back on it, like, when I was let go, at first it was very depressing and sad. And then it's like, maybe that was actually the best thing to ever happen to me, because it was 2 cups of coffee, tea, Monster Energy drink, repeat. And like the heart palpitations were a very real thing. And then the anxiety and the depression, and then the more anxiety, and then the fear, and then the I should be working, but I'm not working, so maybe I should fill that void with some other thing. Like it is okay to be who you are and not kill yourself trying to be somebody more or something else. Like that's the one thing I actually took this away from y'all's podcast, and this helped me calm down for a second. This was one of y'all's first messages and one of y'all's very first episodes, was that you like help desk? Freaking crush help desk, man. I know several people who like crush the help desk and they don't want to do anything else, and kudos to them. Like it's cool for me. I'm so jealous of them on so many levels that like they have this ability to go home to their family and disconnect and be happy. Whereas me, for the last years, it's just been go, 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 go. Somebody's better than you. Go, go, go. Beat them. Go, 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 go. Stop being so competitive.
Yeah.
Like that was something that COVID-19 has forced me to adapt to and slow my pace down a little bit, because the 80-hour a week, which was instantly shifted down to a 16-hour a week because my wife works. We have a small child. We have to watch after him, and then like trying to make it work. Like, okay, I'll work from 8 till midnight. I'll sleep from midnight till 5. I'll work from 5 till 9. She can work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It doesn't kill yourself.
Yeah, like keeping up, the competition thing is interesting that you say, because I feel the same way, but it's never about like other people. Like it's never about like the people here, even, in this virtual room. I don't ever feel the competition. I actually get like stoked by these guys. Like they help me like light my fire. But for some reason, whenever I'm
You've got a coworker that you've got a target on.
Dude,
Yeah,
it's always at work. It's been at work since day one, dude. I'm talking like I was flipping burgers at McDonald's, and I'm like, why is this dude so slow at rapping? Give me the rapper. Like I'm gonna crush this double cheeseburger, dude. Like this. Like also, I can count to 10 in a scooper to get your chicken McNuggets out quicker than most accountants can count to 10. So like I'm pretty freaking good at that. But to your point, it's like always people at work that are like, and I don't know if it's driving me to be better. But to your point, it's like driving me to be different. And maybe it's not who I really am, because I like coming home. I'm like you, dude. There's definitely a balance. And I was actually thinking about taking a CCIE as well. And I'm thinking now, like, I don't know what that would get me at this point, right? Like, don't get me wrong. It's not going to do anything bad for me, obviously,
sure.
right? It's all good. But I don't know that I would be able to parlay that into something that I would be happy with. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think there's something else to be said about the CCIE journey here that I think is very important, that I've learned the hard way, that nobody else has said yet. You hear about everybody else's CCIE journey, and what are the things that stick out to you the most? I studied X amount of hours every day.
Yep.
Don't do that if you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing, is like when I set out in this journey, and I was like, okay, if I'm going to get my CCIE by X date, I'm going to have to do 4 to 6 hours every day, at least 5 days a week, because you have to have 1,000 hours. And it's like, but for what? Like, why do you have to do it in 6 months?
And also, who said that?
Do it in 18. Exactly. Like everybody says it. Apparently,
right.
That's the thing.
But it's like passed down. It's kind of like, Andy mentions this all the time when we talk about high school counselors and college counselors. They're like, yep, you need to go to school and you need to get a CS degree. They say that all the time. But like, why? Why do they keep saying that? Like, what is it? Can you tell me exactly? Well, because you're going to get that's not, nah, you don't know me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so the CCIE is not for everybody. Also, the reason why someone would take 8 hours a day to study, that's like, to me, that almost has become like, if you're in like a circle like we are, like a community, right? Where it's like, we're all like-minded. We know how much it takes, right? And if you're in that community and you understand, then the contest does not become who has a CCIE and who doesn't. The contest is, well, I studied 8 hours a day, and I still failed it. So good luck, buddy, because you're doing 7.5 hours a day. So that probably won't happen, because
And I mean, and this is easy for me to say because I don't have a CCIE, but in social media, it sure does feel like us versus them, doesn't it? It sure does feel like people who do have a CCIE and people who don't.
Yeah.
And it's maybe it's because like that's their Twitter handle or their little comment number.
Probably a lot to do with it.
Like there's and I mean that's if I got my CCIE, I'd probably put it somewhere. But you know what I mean? Like it does feel very intimidating. It does. I don't want to say it makes me feel belittled or something, but it does inspire me and motivate me. It makes me feel like I have something to prove. And going through this CCIE journey has revealed a lot of, in my opinion, like truths or maybe fallacies. I don't know. Again, I haven't taken the exam, so I don't know how bad I'm going to get beat up by this thing. But I felt like there was more content or harder to study for the MCSE. I've already said that one.
Wow. Okay.
The CCIE itself, I am going through these like one bullet point at a time, and there hasn't been anything in particular that I found hard. That's the thing that I want to say that to everybody is like, if you haven't ever gone for your CCIE and it's because you are intimidated by the content, don't be intimidated by the content. Because I haven't found necessarily any of this. It's a tremendous amount of content. That's probably why it's hard.
Yeah.
But individually, like I could explain CCIE level topics in probably 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Like an EIGRP leak map and how that's basically the same thing as a BGP unsuppressed map. Like there's not much to it. If you create an aggregate route, you summarize routes. If everybody here is kind of comfortable with route aggregation, where it's like, instead of sending you 24 prefixes, I'm going to send you one that summarizes all of them. But with a leak map, I could let one of those more specific prefixes out. There you go. There's a CCIE level topic. And BGP's version of it is called the unsuppressed map. And the reason you would do it is because you have 2 exit points to your network, and I want the more specific prefix to leak out of one side so that way traffic comes in there. There you go. There's 2 CCIE level topics there in, 60 seconds?
And if you didn't think you were going to learn something by turning this on today, think again, because you just did.
I mean, that's kind of my point is I'm going through all of this stuff and I'm like, that's cool. That's not hard. That's cool. That's not hard. By the end of it, I've read, like 5,000 pages of books and it's like, well, I can't remember all of it, but going through it one at a time, I didn't find like any one thing was hard. Microsoft Windows Server network policy services, where you're configuring radius authentication in Windows Server.
Look at Dan.
Are you kidding me?
Dude, I've lived that.
Yeah,
the
you
MPS,
better.
I'm the MPS guy at our company. So
Okay, then you know
sucks.
you better block out a month of studying for that thing. Like
God.
that's why I feel like there's a very real difference between CCIE and other types of journeys that you go through in the mountains to climb. Like my big stressor is don't look at the CCIE exam blueprints and see a big word and think I'll never learn how to do it, because at the end of the day, it's probably just one command.
Yeah,
Like,
I've noticed that. I've noticed that. Yeah, you're right. And a lot of stuff carries over, right? Like even look at the CCNA to CCNP. Like so many like things that if you would have just like honestly just studied for a CCIE and then just went like kind of what you did and I'm going to take a CCNA today because I've been studying CCIE level stuff. Yeah, you have to have foundational stuff, right? But that it's all there. It's all similar ideas. It's all like as Chris Bryant would say, the name is the recipe in some cases, kind of like to your point, it's just one command. Sometimes the bullet point is one command. Does part of you, because you've kind of turned into like, it's what it sounds like, it's almost like this like anti-hero, right? Are you going to go to the CCIE? Because this is what I would do if I was you, just putting that out there. Are you going to go to the CCIE, pass it, and then come out and do everybody a favor and just go, guys, it was freaking easy. Like, go do it.
Well, I mean, even at this point, I've been studying for like 5 or 6 months. So, and I'm, if you're watching my CCIE practice lab, I'm screwing up pretty bad. So, it's not that I'm going to say it's, as a whole, it's not easy. The topics themselves individually are easy, but am I going to be able to do multicast within a VRF on the fly and then jump over to DNA Center, then jump over to SD-WAN, then jump into Python? Like, that's where I think the exam, that's why I'm going to say the exam itself is going to be the hardest part to the entire topic. It's not the mountain. It's not the individual topics. It's just that you have to cram it all into a 3-hour design, then 5-hour deploy, operate, optimize. Like, that's where I think they're going to crush me, and that's why I think it is going to be the gold standard of expert. If I took it right now, I'd probably fail, but I would take it right now if it was available. Let me stress that.
Wait, so knowing you were going to fail, because you just said it straight up. Like, I know for a fact I would fail right now, but I would go take it. So why would you do that?
Because where else am I going to get the experience and learn where I'm good or where I'm bad at? What is the exam really like? I've never taken a CCIE before. You hear all these nightmare stories about it. I'm kind of like studying right now and kind of shrugging and going like, oh, let's just see.
Yeah.
And that's like, I'm okay with failing on my first try. Pretty much everybody else does. The only person I know that didn't was Keith Barker. So
yeah.
And Keith
unfair.
Barker he's forgotten more than I'll ever learn.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell. Dude, some of those guys, like you said, the trainers,
right?
the trainers that are just speaking to their 30 years of experience.
Yeah.
Right? He probably does a little
that's-
bit of both, but
so Keith is a freak. Like, SD-WAN rolls out and he's like, I'll learn SD-WAN in a week, and he does. Like, and then he's like, hey, let's have a meeting real quick, and we'll use my lab topology that I built over the weekend to build our entire course on, and that's literally what happened.
wow.
So I mean, like, don't overlook some of these guys and think that they're not learners, because they can learn. But again, that's the job of a trainer, is to learn and study all day long. Recording and editing and uploading is like 20% of the job.
Really? Because
Yeah.
that's the hardest part for me, because I'm an idiot. But also I don't know what I could really teach anybody anyway.
Well, the cool thing about CBT Nuggets is different from everybody else because our videos are like 5 minutes. That's why they're nuggets,
perfect.
right?
It's perfect.
Whereas everybody else is uploading this 1 hour thing. Like our thing is like just tiny little bite-sized bits of information. So me as a trainer, the night before, I'm like, I only have to learn a tiny little bite-sized bit of information. So maybe I study for an hour or two, and then the next day I know it well enough to where I can just click record and just vomit into the microphone for a half an hour about what I learned last night.
Yeah.
And lab it up, and then watch it 10 million times to make sure it doesn't suck and I don't have any errors in there, or like, is somebody going to poke a hole in this video somewhere else?
Yeah.
Like, I do like spot check the hell out of it, but that's the process when it comes to making digestible content.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's very, very concentrated. Obviously, that's the CBT Nugget niche. It's the name. The name is the recipe. But yeah, I think that's what a lot of people are drawn to by CBT Nuggets too. Is obviously you guys are a huge part of that. All the trainers and stuff, because people learn to. We invite you into our. I mean, this is my bed behind me, right? I invite you into my bedroom and
Just got weird.
Just go. Did you guys want me to go over there? I can give you a nice little preview of what it looks like when I'm snoring at night and drooling on myself. But yeah, we invite you in, and you guys have no idea that you're spending every night with us, right? Like, how does that make you feel? Like, dude. So you in particular, Knox, I'll just maybe virtually pat you on the back for this. Like, there was a period where when I was driving to work like a year and a half ago or so, that all I did was listen to you. Right, so your voice is playing through my car for like an hour twice a day. Is that weird to you?
No, no, I don't think so, because that's what I always wanted. Like, CBT Nuggets changed my life, like, in the hugest way possible. That's what I've been studying with for years and getting certifications, and this to me was a way to give back and try and spread it forward. And specifically, like, my specialty within CBT Nuggets is new tech, like things that nobody else is tackling. That's where my happy place is. That's where I get my endorphin rush from learning a new tech and then possibly passing an exam on it. And there's also the flip side of it. Like, I will never, and I mean never, be able to teach OSPF or EIGRP as good as Keith Barker. And I'll never be able to do whiteboarding in theory as good as Jeff Kish. So my specialty is within, now that you've got this new appliance, what do you do with it? Here, let me show you the first thing that you click on, because I just suffered through it for the last month, so you won't have to. That's my role in CBT Nuggets. And the other thing is not everybody, not everybody's down with that style, and that's okay too. The best compliment that I ever received, or really we ever received, was learning from competitor ABC was like learning in a classroom, whereas learning from CBT Nuggets was like learning from my mentor. And like that almost brought a little tear to my eye. The flip side of that is like 5 days ago, I got the absolute most brutal comment or review on one of my nuggets ever.
Wait.
Person,
Where do they come from? Is there like a suggestion box or something?
No, there's a comment on every video. Like there's comments on every single video, and someone like just really does not like my voice. And I mean, like, here the highlights of it. I can read it.
Yes.
I don't know about anybody else, but I can't stand this new guy doing these training videos. This guy's voice is incredibly annoying, and I just plain don't like his presence in any sense of the learning experience. I seriously hope I don't have to do any more series with this guy in them. And he goes on. He goes on to say, like, I'm sure he's nice and a decent person, and I'm not trying to be mean, but I feel like he should not be a trainer or a teacher.
So what does that do to you? What does that do to you?
Yeah, what does that do?
I've always been very self-aware of my voice. Every drive-through I go through, I get mistaken for a girl. I was walking my dog about a year ago, full beard and everything. A little kid runs up to me and goes like, "Hey, can I pet your dog?" And I say, "Yeah, sure. He's a nice dog." And he goes, "Are you a boy or a girl?" And I'm like,
"Come on,
like, okay. Yeah,
it's
so
not that. It's not that bad, dude."
I mean, I don't think my voice is that bad, but like, you know, like we get feedback like this, like this style, this very informal, like let's have some fun with networking. Like, you know, it's not for everybody, and I get that too, but it really resonated with me, especially coming from a formal classroom lecture environment. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to learn from a friend, and I wanted to learn from people who I felt like I could have a personal connection with. I wanted to learn from people who were as enthusiastic about the technology as I was. And when I try and sit down and record, I'm trying to let my enthusiasm bleed through too. Because 99% of the time, when I hit that record button, I am freaking stoked to be talking about what I'm talking about today. Today, I recorded some stuff for the SCORE exam, the security core. And I recorded how Cisco ICE can perform profiling on end devices, how it can do different kinds of authentication, how it can communicate to AMP to determine when a vulnerability has taken place on an endpoint PC, and send a message to the switches to say, change its authorization level. Like, stuff like that is like, that's freaking cool.
That's real cool.
And I was like stoked to sit down, like, watch this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but like, I get it how some people are like very serious people, and they don't want, you know, me and my annoying voice to, come jump in their face and get stupid stoked about AMP for endpoints. So,
Yeah, I know. I get that.
No, but,
I get that.
But,
yeah.
But for those of you whose bedroom I'm in, I'm happy to be there within the right context.
And if you want someone in there in the wrong context, I will leave my phone number in the show notes. And hey guys, it's Aaron here. If you noticed, the show is actually still going on, but I am rudely interrupting to bring you an important message about this episode being split into 2 episodes. Sometimes when you talk to a guest like Knox, you end up with a little bit more information than can occupy 1 episode, so we've split it into 2. So in order to hear the rest of that, please stay tuned, check out the next episode, and until then, see ya!
Hey everyone, this is AJ. If you like what you heard today, then make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcatcher. Smash that bell icon to get notified of all of our future episodes. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Art of NetEng. That's Art of NETENG. You can also find us on the web at artofnetworkengineering.com, where we post all of our show notes. You can read blog articles from the co-hosts and guests, and also a lot more news and info from the networking world. Thanks for listening.